says 5:06.
Mine's always off about 3 or 4 minutes.
Actually, I can probably go in there and change the setting, but now you say that, I'm looking, it says 5:06, so it's not right.
Yeah, that's what mine does too.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to call the Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District monthly board meeting November 9, 2015 to order. Please rise.
We want to take a few moments and just a moment of silence for those 6 firemen who lost their lives over this past month. And also, since Wednesday is Veterans Day, I think it would be appropriate to also remember those veterans who have served faithfully, as well as those that have sacrificed for us over the years. So let's have that moment of silence and I'll pray. Dear God, we come to you tonight and we give you thanks for those that have served faithfully as firemen across this country. And this past month, 6 have lost their lives. And we ask, Lord, that you will give them honor and glory due them, that you'll be with their families and give them strength and comfort during this time. And Lord, also tonight we give thanks for all the veterans that have served to ensure the freedoms that we have here in this nation. I thank you for those that have served faithfully. I thank you for those that have made the ultimate sacrifice so that we can enjoy the blessings that we have. Lord, we pray that you'll continue to watch over our nation and guide and direct it each and every day. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any public input on tonight's agenda items? Seeing none. I need approval of the October 12th, 2015 regular board meeting minutes.
I so move.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One motion for the October 2015 financials, current expenditures and ACH payments, acknowledgement of financial report, and acknowledgement of wire transfers and transfers between accounts.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is annual service pins for Commissioner McCourt and Commissioner Murphy. 1 year? Time flies when you're having fun.
You bet.
Yes, sir. I'd like to take this time to recognize both commissioners for their dedication to the district. And as the chief officer here, I want to thank you personally for your involvement with the district and what you've done to help the community and in giving us the ability to provide the service that they deserve. And my thanks goes out to you, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
And that comes from heartfelt from myself also. Been a pleasure working with you.
I also thank you.
Yeah, it was a hard decision, but thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. Old business. You got something to tell us about surplus Marine 21?
Yes, sir. We put that out for bid for the other fire districts or government agencies. We did not receive a bid for the price that the board had stated. And however, now we're in the process of putting out publicly. So when that time is over, then we will return to the board should we not get a bid on the boat, and we'll determine where we will go from there. So,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
When will you know when you're going to get something from the public? What's the deadline?
November 25th, Wednesday,
Oh,
November.
okay. So we would be, well, I was just wondering, was there any merit in, for the board to figure out what they would do if you didn't, so we didn't have to deal with it at the next meeting?
Yeah, I would recommend that we wait and see if
Okay.
we have any bid. Yes, sir.
Anybody have any new business? And we'll move on to Chief's report. Chief Daigle?
Yes, gentlemen, I did want to echo what the chaplain was saying. And chaplain, thank you very much for your service here. It always is nice to see you at these meetings, providing us a little bit of the guidance. I would also like to mention that the retirement awards, I guess party we'll call it, was on October 30th at Lansdowne, and we had a great turnout, and it was a fantastic event. From the retirees to all the members of this organization. I think we had a wonderful time, and it's really good to see everybody in a social setting, acknowledging the great work that the men and women who have retired from this organization and what they've done and meant to this whole organization over the last decades, in fact, is recognizable. And to see them go out on a very positive note, with including, I know the commissioners were there as well, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. It was certainly great for the organization, so thank you. Next, I'd like to also mention that we had quite a few public events that we attended, and many times when we're out in the public, I just wanted to recognize that even though we're at these public events, many times we are called to service during these public events, and this month, well, actually October 24th at Riverfest, the Autumn Festival, we had a woman who was having heart palpitations and happened to walk up to the fire truck while we were there showing the fire truck. And on one side we're showing the fire truck, and on the other side we were actually treating a patient. So it was good for the firefighters to be on that scene and have the ability to help one of our citizens that was in distress at that moment. Additionally, we also had at the Bonita Springs Concert Band, they had a concert for us, the fire district, and first responders, EMS, police, and also the military. And during such time, it was, unseasonably hot that day. We did have one of the performers have a syncopal episode or go down from heat exhaustion, in which time they stopped the concert and we rendered aid. I believe there's close to, I'd say, 1,500 to 2,000 people at that event, so it was a good event. Additionally, also at the Harvest Festival, we had a citizen faint outside the school, and we happened to be there during one of our events as well, and we're able to render sufficient medical treatment. So I guess all in all, it pleasures me to know that our troops are out there doing their job, even when we're doing community service work. So I wanted to thank them for being as dedicated as they are. Next, I would like to mention that we will be purchasing a radio frequency ID technology, which has been part of our, was in our budget. And basically, this is going to allow us to inventory all the district's equipment. Basically, what it is now we hand inventory everything. We put a number on it. We go around the station once a year, right? Yeah, once a year, and we scan everything from the chairs to the microphones to all the medical equipment, everything on the truck, everything in the offices, and it's, as you can imagine, it's quite the arduous task. What this new program will allow us to do is when we will have everything will be tagged, all of our inventory pieces will be tagged, and we'll be able to walk into the room, hit a button, and it automatically loads everything that is tagged into the system. So it saves us the trouble of having to go around and scan each individual item. Additionally, this works for all of our medical equipment, all of our drugs, all of our, heart monitors, splints, anything that we have medically that we have to inventory quite often and once a month at least, and some of the stations do it weekly. So what this will do would be save a tremendous amount of man hours that we do inventory, that we spend on inventory, and will allow us much tighter controls over what we're using, what we're spending, and what it's costing the district, and how we can best save money in the future for our purchases. Additionally, I would like to mention that the city is having the Veterans Day celebration at 11 o'clock on Wednesday. So make sure the board and the public understands that we will be supporting that, and our troops will be there along with myself and anyone else who decides to attend. I did want to bring up that the date for the board meeting on December 7th, I wanted to remind the board that we had changed that meeting on to December 7th, and also request the board to move the February meeting to the 1st of February. If there would be any discussion with that in Commissioner's business, we could talk about that so we could reschedule that.
Do you need a motion for that, or do we just have to have a consensus?
We could make a motion for that, would help me at this point.
I will not be in town that day.
The first?
I'm on a cruise.
How about the 15th?
I'm just only a week cruise, I'll be back.
We can move it to the 15th possibly. The week after, the third Monday instead of the second. Is that a problem?
That would not be a problem.
I
Well,
believe I'll be out of
15th is
town,
President's
Maybe
Day.
down there?
coming back that day from Costa Rica, my daughter's wedding.
And the 15th is President's Day.
Okay, let's do it the first.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, we'll call it Lake and our cruise.
The 1st of December?
Well, is it possible to change it to a day other than Monday?
We could change it to whatever day the board would like.
We're going to change the date. I mean, we could change it to a day that everybody's agreed with.
Tuesday the 16th.
That'd be good, because I'll be back, I was planning on being back for that following Monday anyway. That's why I took the cruise, so the day after, that's fine. With me anyway.
Commissioner Forbes?
Tuesday the 16th, all right with you?
Yep.
Need a motion for that?
I'll make that motion that we move to that date.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. That's all that I have.
Thank you. Chief DeWitt?
Believe it or not, I have nothing tonight.
Thank you.
Chief Giuliano?
I've got nothing either.
Okay. I did read your report. And Chief Scott?
I do have something.
Of course you do.
Figures.
Can't get off that easy. One of us is going to have something. You want to pull those up? So I came up to talk to y'all a little bit this afternoon or this evening about a call you might have heard of a couple weekends ago. On a Sunday, about noon, at the Old 41 restaurant, up on Old 41. So, and I want to, we have some pictures here, but I want to just kind of paint a picture. The purpose of this is not to go through the call detail by detail, but rather remind everybody of the job of an officer here and a crew, and how these calls come in, and the process, and what we have to think about on the way into these calls. So this was Sunday at noon, a restaurant that's very popular for breakfast and or lunch, and from what we found out, it was full pretty much on this day. So the call came in that a car ran into first it came in as an MVC, motor vehicle accident. And shortly after that, some more additional information came in that a car ran into the restaurant. So knowing that it's Sunday, the restaurant's full, and a car ran through it with maybe 80, 100 people in the restaurant, I would guess, at full capacity. It also mentioned, there's a picture there of the car all the way in the back of the restaurant. It came in as people pinned underneath the car. So when that call hit, I was actually at home mowing the grass. I wasn't on duty. But when I started reading it, and I'm sure Battalion Chief Brown, who was the first, not the first officer, but the battalion chief on duty that day, the things that we processed on a call like this. So, of course, the patients that could be 50 patients or more on this call. You have to think about hazardous conditions, gas, natural gas, propane, structural collapse before we ever arrive. How many resources do we need to treat all these patients? The police are involved, EMS, how many of those units come in? So all these things are processing through the first officer, and that can be a lieutenant, a battalion chief, myself. Point being made here is that any officer on this department has to be able to mitigate and process that information to get the proper resources on scene. So there's a picture there, and you can see Battalion Chief Brown out front. The car came in, it went right through the glass, it took out all the glass, and I say luckily because there was, we wound up finding out there was no structural damage to the building. Miraculously, we didn't have any major injuries. There was 20 patients there that we treated or attended to. 5 went to the hospital, and 15 more refused. So, but what I want to bring attention to as well is when I got there 10 or 12 minutes after the scene had, the accident happened, there was a staging area for ambulances. There was a triage area inside for all the patients. There was a treatment area outside, and there was a corridor of ambulances running through all these things in place. There was a supervisor from EMS there. There was law enforcement was there, and of course we had an engine, battalion chief, the truck, an engine from Estero. Is that? Yeah, initially, and the squad, all on scene within 10 minutes, treating and taking care of these patients. So one more thing I want to mention is one of the hardest things once you get in, you get past all the hazards and all those things, is when you start to triage these patients. This is what we call an MCI, a mass casualty incident, which means we have more patients than responders or professionals to take care of them. So not getting locked into one particular patient or two when you walk in the door. When you have, when you walked in, there was probably 30 or 40 people, at least, maybe 50. You have to get through all those and figure out who's injured the most seriously. So if you start to treat one patient, all the rest of them suffer. So it's very difficult to not put those blinders on and go into the first person that grabs you, because that's what we're trained to do, is to go out there and help people and treat patients. So it's very difficult. I've been there. I've had these types of calls, so I really want to just commend the crews, because by the time I got there, I had almost nothing to do. They had everything taken care of. Everything was in place. And the call went, very, very well. So I just wanted to run through that. Now, one more thing. Sorry. We talk a lot in our meetings here, and we talk a lot in our offices about categorizing calls. In our annual report, we discuss it in here. We discuss it amongst ourselves. What calls are EMS calls? Which calls are fire calls? Which calls are miscellaneous calls? And think about what you would categorize this call. It's not a fire, but it could have been. It's definitely an EMS call with 20 or more patients. Is it a hazardous materials call? Is it a structural collapse call? So we're the only agency out there. The police take care of their, EMS takes care of medical, and think about what we take care of. It's just a reminder, and that's really why I came up to talk to you all tonight. We take care of everything. And this is one of those examples of how our people are trained and need to be trained to take care of the scenes and the people that were in that restaurant. Do you have any questions about this?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to congratulate all of you for the preparedness.
Yeah. Thank you.
I did want to say, just to add to what Deputy Chief Scott says, we review and critique these calls every time they come in, and every time we hear that there's a significant call like this, and try to determine what we could do better and how we can get better and what we can change. And I think all of us agree that Battalion Chief Brown did an outstanding job. But another thing that I was thinking about, I showed up on this scene well after it was over. Being a line officer myself, the first thing I was thinking when I read the call was natural gas leak, electrical hazards, explosions. Where are we going to shut the roads down? Where are we going to land the chopper? Because indicatively, normally this would be a situation where thank goodness we didn't have to do it, but a situation where we would have to start talking to hospitals, the trauma center, how many beds they have, activate the trauma surgeons. So these are all much broader than just that the officers are doing, much broader than that one person that may be trapped under the car. We're talking regional impact here. When I say regional impact, could be 2 counties, depending on how bad the situation was. So this is a great learning experience for us, and it's also a great way that we can test our skills, and that would be my comment.
It was miraculous that it wasn't a lot worse than it was.
Yes, sir.
I mean, there's no question about that. I'm very fortunate.
Yeah. I believe we have somebody in the crowd here whose family was impacted by that particular incident.
Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you.
You can come up here if you'd like.
That's fine. My name is George Molnar. My wife and I recently moved. We live in the new village of Estero, the village with the vision. And my wife's cousins, one was 69, one was 65, both visiting from Ireland. My wife was born in Ireland. If we've been here.
I love her already.
Okay, Mr. Murphy, thank you. We met a couple of weeks ago. When we got the call, we were absolutely shocked. We live in Country Creek, so it's not that far. We came down here, and first of all, congratulations and thank you to everybody who helped. The thing that was literally a wake-up call for my wife and I was, oh my gosh, this has never happened to us or anyone we know. What do? We were standing there asking questions, and people were asking questions of us. Do you want an ambulance to take them to the hospital? Okay. Well, I'm not a medical doctor. I don't know. The one woman, obviously her knee was all banged up and bruised, and that. The other woman, just simply because of the circumstances, I would have, as a layperson, diagnosed it as almost in shock, which is certainly not understandable. So I actually, when I talked to Mr. Scott, I went up and talked to the Estero, to a comparable unit on 307 Estero, saying, how can you educate your average citizen as to what to do? People are asking me, do you want an ambulance? I'm saying, I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't know. It's my fault that I didn't know and wasn't familiar enough with some of the medical facilities available. I mean, I know there's an Omega Center on Corkscrew. I know there's something on the corner of Corkscrew and Three Oaks. I know there's trauma centers. I know there's NCH. But it's really a wake-up call for the residents to know what to do. And we can't rely on, as Mr. Scott and I discussed, recommendations. That's not your organization's job to make a recommendation as to where to go, because they may not have an X-ray, they may not have an MRI, they may be closed, for God's sake. So my concern is, how do residents, whether they're full-time, part-time, snowbirds, whatever, how does your organization and Estero's organization get the word out about what you should do in circumstances like this? But again, congratulations to everybody. Fortunately, both of my wife's cousins took it to NCH. We were there for about five and a half hours, and everybody's fine. We were concerned because Stacia had a knee replacement, and that was the knee that the tables. I don't know, just the description, I guess, when the car went in. Was a domino effect of the tables and the chairs. I know they weren't hit by the car, but they were hit by the tables and chairs that, in fact, were pushed by the car. But anyway, just again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
If there's a way that, I don't know, I mean, I buy the local newspapers. I buy the Naples paper, I buy the Fort Myers newspaper. There should be a way that you can educate people about what are the options. That's what the discussion we had, because it was really an eye-opening experience. That, you think you're smart, you think you're experienced, you think you know these things, but when a situation like this arises, you're dead in the water as a layperson. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment, sir. Thank you very much for your input. That will certainly help us moving forward with ways we could inform the public about that exact scenario. We appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
I think that's all we have, correct?
Anybody got anything from 3444 this evening? Commissioner's business.
I have nothing.
Commissioner Ford?
Side thing, I happened to be there about 15 minutes, left about 15 minutes before this thing happened.
Oh, really?
I would have got to see our guys in action if I had been there.
I'd prefer to miss that one myself.
Well, I was deep in the restaurant, so I'd probably been okay.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes, I do have something to talk about. It's identity theft. And I believe we have a program right now that's available to all the firefighters and everyone in the administration to protect them from identity theft. I don't know that all of the fire commissioners currently have protection. I personally do. But because they have this service here, the other commissioners at some point in time can buy into it. And perhaps the administration can help them figure out whether or not it would work for them with pricing and the advantages.
Well, I got a question about that. How do we protect, like, all the phones that are department phones that are tied into the system? Are they all, because we were at a FASD meeting in Jupiter last month. One of the, or two of the gentlemen, one from Dell and one from a security software company, did a presentation, and we ended up having lunch with one of them. And it's damn scary. I mean, the stuff that's out there, within 10 or 15 minutes of you protecting yourself, they've already figured out a way around it, and can cause significant harm. So I guess what it really did is it popped up on my radar, as it did Commissioner Murphy, that I'm sure we're doing things to protect, but are we doing enough, and do we need to look at it? I know this gentleman, the two gentlemen that did the proposal or did the speech at the conference are going to be at our annual conference in June, and they're going to do a detailed presentation explaining everything that they do. But I think that I'm sure that we do stuff now, but with phones, just the phones and the internet access and all that stuff on the phones, they made it sound like within 2 minutes they could have everything off that phone whenever they wanted it, and I don't know if we're protected against that.
All right.
Well, we do employ CRS, which is our IT department, more or less.
Can't remember. Oh, no, never mind.
And they do an excellent job. And we have had some, we've had some security issues and breaches with our services in the past, like a lot of organizations do, but they've been with us for a while, and they're very good at cleaning up anything that happens like that and making us aware of any kind of cyber threats that are out there and mitigating them as they come along. One of their responsibilities is to make sure that our system is protected.
We've had these people for several years.
How many years have we had them for?
My
Since
question is, as a
18
commissioner, how
years.
often do we put that out to bid?
I don't think we've put that out to bid. We've been happy with them in the past.
Okay.
I can't remember the last time we put them out to bid.
Well, I'd like to make a suggestion that at least either you or one of our staff inquire what it would cost to have two things I'm looking at. They come in, and without our guys being around, let them see what they can get into to see if what we're paying for is really protecting us. And secondly, while they're here, I'm sure that the city would probably like to piggyback on that too, because none of us can be too safe. And then there may even be some possibilities that gated communities would be willing to pay to have these people come in to some of those and put on the same thing. So it could be a good thing for the whole city, but for sure us in the city of Bonita Springs, city government.
Well, after the conversation we had with that guy at lunch, I turned my phone off. I'm like, the guy scared me to death. And that presentation they did was mind-boggling.
A 20-minute presentation that scared the crap out of me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it just, we've become very complacent in life, and you know, we take a lot for granted. Those guys, they're not anybody I'd like to hang around with because they're scary.
But it wouldn't be just the
So-
smartphones, it would be your tablets,
Everything.
your laptops, everything.
Laptops, everything.
I
And
think it would
that
be-
we, you know, we have an obligation to take a really hard look at it.
Right, and that's the way to do it, because you don't know till you have it tested by somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, Director Genron just told me that we did do we put it out for bid, or was it for bid? A price comparison or analysis a couple years back. But in any event, I still think it would be a good idea as a informational piece to have them come in, or
It's not so
Somebody
much
can-
about the cost of it as of what are they protecting us against versus what's out there. Because
right.
this technology is changing so quickly that are the people that we're dealing with staying up with it. Now, I'm not saying anything one way or the other. I just think it's something that should be investigated.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I agree.
Another thing that I've brought up in years past, and I'm going to bring it up again, and I'd like to see what everybody else feels about this, but we run an inordinate amount of false alarms, and a lot of them go to the same places on a regular basis. And I work for a club that, you know, we have alarm systems and they go off, and I know how expensive it is to have technicians come out and work on them. And I think that at some point, we need to take a look. Neighboring districts are doing it. I think not as a moneymaker, absolutely not as a moneymaker, but as a deterrent for the repeat offenders of false alarms, where we're running calls, we're putting lives in danger every time those guys go out. Lights and sirens, we're putting for a call that you have to take for real, and you get there and it's, I just want to see what administration feels and what my fellow commissioners feel about if you get, I don't know, one a month, or if you get, you know, I understand power surges and things like that, but when you get the same businesses that alarms are going off 2, 3, 4 times in a 2 and 3, 4 day span, then there's also the risk of, oh, well, that's a false alarm, and there's going to be that one day that, oh, well, we're not going to go, you know, or we're going to send one unit, and you get there and there's smoke rolling out of the place. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but I think that at some point, my personal feeling is that, and I don't know what the numbers are, I don't know what would be a deterrent, but I do feel, I know when our burglar alarm goes off, after the first one, you get a written warning, and the second one, it's $75 when the sheriff comes out, and everyone after that goes up, okay? You know what that does? It makes your people make sure the doors are locked. It makes you make sure, management makes sure that everybody that has a key knows how to shut the alarms off. I think that from a fire standpoint and rolling the equipment we roll out to these things, I think that, and it's the same people that regularly just have false alarms, that there should be some type of a deterrent, some type of a cost after you've had 2 or 3 or however many. We give you so much time to have the technicians come in and fix it, but if you don't fix it and it's an ongoing problem, I think there should be some type of a deterrent or some type of a fee. I don't know how anybody feels about that, but I feel pretty strongly about wasting resources.
Well, Steve, we used to have that same problem up north, and what we did was initiated it's very similar to what you do with the burglar alarms. And after the first one, you get a warning for the second one, and after that, you get fined. And boy, that made a big difference in how many times we responded, because they started correcting the problems, and it completely cut in half our responses for false alarms.
And that's my point. You know, it's not a matter of we're trying to punish people. We're trying to keep people safe here, and rolling trucks out in the middle of the night or the middle of the day. You know, when traffic is crazy around here in season, we're putting people in harm's way for bogus calls, and there's a lot of them, and there's a significant number, and it just seems that it should be something, I think, that we look at it's a slap on the wrist to somebody, but if it costs $500 to have the tech come out and look at the alarm, and it costs nothing to have us keep going and resetting it and fixing it for them, why would they call and spend the $500?
What's our present program?
Well, we
We don't have
have
one.
not charged, and this issue came up, in my recollection, quite a number of years ago. Typically, the way we do it now is if we get an alarm and it's a repeat alarm, the battalion chief will determine the response, and it also depends on will we respond, like, for example, if it's set off by pressure cleaning or something like that, or a tech's on scene, we do not respond. And there are progressive fines for repeat offenders. We do not do that at this current time. However, it's something that we can look into, and
I'll tell you who's as big an offender as anybody are the techs. I've seen it countless times. I've witnessed it countless times when they're going to do a test on the alarm system and they don't bother to notify us. And they just, we don't know. It comes in, the alarm company calls, it's a fire alarm. We don't know that the tech is there working on it, tested it. And in those cases, then the company should be charged.
That was an automatic fine. If
It should be.
if the tech did notify us of the situation, that he was gonna do a test or whatever he was gonna do, a repair, and we were called, he'd be fined, the company would be fined. It would cut it out. It stopped it. It was an amazing difference. Something to look into, Joe.
well, I think I can offer the board to investigate the matter and see what other, I guess you'd call them fine scenarios that are out there, and come up with a potential plan, for lack of a better term, to initiate such a program.
Well, I agree. I was going to give you a couple ideas. I think you might consider, instead of calling it a fine, an emergency run false alarm charge or something like that.
Mhm.
Sounds better than a fine. Secondly,
Yeah, well, it's a deterrent, is
Yeah,
what it is. We're trying to
but-
get the number of false alarms.
but the big thing I was going to say is, why don't you have like a sliding scale that if over a certain period of time, the more often this happens, it starts out low and builds
Right.
up.
It's per
But
month.
then, as, let's say, you get to a year or a year and a half, then you wipe the slate clean, because at some point, the property might even change hands or whatever, and start all over again. I think
Yes,
we
sir.
should do it, definitely.
I certainly didn't bring this up to be a moneymaker. That's not the intent here. But I do know every time we fire up equipment and head out, it's probably costing us $200 or $300. The guys are getting paid, but every time you fire the truck up, the wear and tear and putting people's lives in danger, if we can do something to deter this so that people will pay more attention and the alarm companies will pay more attention to calling when they're doing something, we're never going to be able to stop the power surges. We're never going to be able to stop the things that, are beyond anybody's control that set them off. That's not the intent here. The intent here is for, there's a business that's very close to Station 5. They've gotten better, but for a while there, they were rolling in there constantly. And I brought it up 2 years ago, and we never did anything with it. And I'm bringing it up again because when I read all the calls, and Frank puts his report together and the numbers, and there's a significant number that I don't think we need to be going on, and we should do something. I don't know what it would.
Couldn't we ask the staff to come back with a
Yes.
recommendation at the next
Yeah,
meeting?
that's great.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
By consensus.
Mr. Chairman, my neighborhood in particular had a problem with this. I believe that I saw the fire truck there perhaps 3 or 4 times. I finally went and asked them what was going on, and it was a faulty firebox. The community knew nothing about it. The technicians finally had to put in a new box. So I think that if we do put a penalty situation in place, we should probably, as a board, have a right to review it.
I think it would be
And-
on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I think it should
I
be a
don't think it should
case-by-case.
be one-size-fits-all, but I think we need to do something to deter these false alarms.
All right.
Normally, when we do get these type of scenarios that are happening, we send them over to the prevention division, and Fire Marshal Fernandez will send one of his inspectors out to, in fact, look at the system and see if it is functioning properly and make recommendations to
All
correct
due
the issue.
respect, though, that's not our job to be inspecting, I understand we have to check the systems, but when they keep going off, I don't feel it's our responsibility to go there and find out what's wrong. That's what they have techs for, that's why they have the systems, and they should maintain them, and we shouldn't be there doing that. I don't know how you feel about that, Tim?
Right now, we send inspectors out there when we find out there's an issue. We send somebody out there. And we find that if the system is down or there's a problem with it, we initiate what they call a fire watch. That means they
I
have to
know
have
that. I'm
somebody
familiar
do the
with that.
fire watch until they get it fixed. So that usually sometimes reaches into their pocket also besides the
How often,
technician.
how often do we put people on fire watch?
Several times a month
Quite a bit.
that I
Is it?
know of, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes it's more than a week.
Well, when the system's down, we have to put somebody on fire watch. There's no way around that.
Mr. Chairman, my house was once hit by lightning and the fire department responded. We weren't able to repair the firebox, which was blown off the wall, for about 6 days. I participated in that fire watch. Every 4 hours, I had to walk every building, round the clock, or hire somebody to do the same
Right.
thing. That's what the fire watch is all about, and that's what we had to do.
Well, we'll look into it, investigate it, and come back with a recommendation for the board.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
I have one more thing. Any information on the beach at all anymore, Tim? Any new information?
Haven't heard any new information, no.
All right, thank you.
On what? What was that?
On the beach, the facility on the beach.
Oh, I got you. Any public input?
Sorry I'm late. Alex Grant, 11851 East Terry Street. Just one comment. Looking over the budget, I noticed on the capital improvement fund, you have either a major fund or special revenue fund. And since you're going to be constructing fire station number 6 out here, east of here, what I'm assuming is happening, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is that a special revenue fund going to be set up for that fire station? In other words, a separate budget item with money coming in and money going out? Is that what you guys are planning on doing? Am I correct?
Yes.
Is that the policy now? I'm from the government, government accounting, whatever, what is it? I can never think of, government finance, you know, the GFAO, whatever, procedure. You see what I'm getting at? You're nodding your head. That's what we're planning on doing, right?
That's what we're doing
And that's what we're doing now. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Any further public input? Call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thanks for coming.